In this day and age, it's so difficult to bring anything new to the horror genre, but in particular to the slasher subgenre, which for half a century has been providing some of the best, most inventive, intensely entertaining films the horror genre has ever produced, some of which have also had a great crossover appeal. Sadly, I don't see In a Violent Nature having much crossover appeal to non-horror fans, or even non-slasher fans, but if you're a hardcore fan of the subgenre, then it'll be difficult not to get on board with this one. Violent by name, and definitely violent by nature. Chris Nash's imaginative slasher is fascinating to watch with some excessively sanguinary scenes, and one kill in particular that is a must-see, that I believe has never been done before. It was both horrifying and excruciatingly satisfying in equal measures. You might want to look away, but instead will probably end up rubbing your hands together with a huge maniacal grin on your face. All of the kills, and most of the film for that matter, is shown from the perspective of the killer, although not in classic POV. The camera follows the killer slowly from behind for the most part, a la Gus Van Sant. The camera angles vary at times, but always lingering close to the killer's proximity in all accounts, instead of spending too much time with the victims. Because of this, we don't really get a chance to know any of the characters, which in turn means we don't really have any reason to root for them. In all honesty, we're really rooting for the killer here, which usually happens when you get deep into the sequels of a slasher franchise. The film is beautifully shot, and because of the purposeful and necessarily slow camera work, we get to enjoy all the glorious forestry scenery that's captured in the entire frame. Your enjoyment of the film will likely depend on how much you can endure the initial slow pace. I personally enjoyed it, and in terms of the actual plot, it wasn't slow at all, but by the nature of how the film was structured and laid out, I could understand some people's reservations. In a Violent Nature really is all about the kills. It's very minimalistic and doesn't rely on the building of a musical score to help intensify any of the action sequences, which is the norm in the genre. Obviously highly influenced by 80s classics like Friday the 13th and The Burning, the backstory feels like a regurgitation, but the simplified motives of the killer is actually refreshing, and not having to invest any time into characters was equally refreshing. However, it does become a little tiresome after the initial few kills, and the gimmick does begin to lose a bit of steam. The lack of music and variation doesn't make it the most exciting watch, despite some of the gruesome and exhilarating murders. There's a scene towards the end that drags just a little bit more than you'd expect, and it works all the better for it, as it's truly a testament to how well Nash has ingrained the killer into our minds. However, the end sequence is let down a little bit by the final girl's phoned-in reactions. It's a million miles away from Marlon Burns' eardrum-bursting wailing at the end of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Chris Nash comes from a special effects make-up background, and he loves showing all the blood and guts and sinew, and this is a really great effort for his debut feature film. It might be a bit frustrating at times, but In a Violent Nature is a fun, inventively gory slasher that ticks almost all the boxes and looks great doing it.